Evander Kane. He has been quite the topic over the past almost decade around the NHL, and it's honestly not usually for anything good. Right now, he's in the news because he's a free agent, and there's a couple teams out there looking to add them to their team, which to me, a little bit surprising given that he has such a crazy history. Now, I understand in the NHL salary cap era, to get a top forward with this kind of talent at probably what is going to be minimum dollars, you're going to get the greedy teams going after him. But to me, they're making a big mistake. These teams that are likely going after him are teams chasing the playoffs, chasing division titles, and obviously chasing Stanley Cups. But given Evander Kane's track history, does he really bolster your team no matter what? Coming from someone who knows that you are a product of the top 5 people you surround yourself with, if you're adding him to a team like Edmonton and McDavid, he is not going to bring anything good to McDavid. McDavid and him, they're going to clash. Evander Kane has a history of this. And that's what the whole point of this video was, to go in and look at really what the history is. Evander Kane was drafted 4th overall in 2009 by the Atlanta Thrashers, which eventually became the Winnipeg Jets. And that's really where this story begins. Before we jump into that, I'd just like to take this chance for everyone to scroll down there, smash that like button, subscribe to join the channel. We make videos all year long, baseball, hockey, football, and also don't forget to follow along with me on Twitter. That's where I post a lot of my personal development as well as sports takes on the daily, so make sure you check that out, and we will jump into this Evander Kane history. This whole thing really started in 2011 when he was with the Jets. Shortly after they went there from Atlanta, he began asking for trades. Now, this isn't something out of the blue in sports. We see it all the time. Star players not really fitting in with their team. They want a different start, etc., etc. They ask for a trade. So you wouldn't really think much of it at the time, but kind of looking back, that's where everything kind of started. January 2012, he got benched for the first 2 periods of a game. Again, it's not really unheard of, especially in the NHL. Some coaches trying to send a message. He's arguably the best forward at the time on the team, so it did make the news. A couple bit later that season in 2012, a game against Ottawa, there's signs in the crowd, "Please stop walking out on your Bills." Now, again, this is kind of hearsay kind of situation and not anything really proven at the time. A lot of things going around, but looking back now with hindsight, it seems to be something that's quite possible. And the financial issues that eventually come down the road, we'll get to that in a little bit. The Jets asked him to tone down his social media. Some big highlights from that at the time were him on the phone with a wad of cash trying to get a hold of Floyd Mayweather while he's in Vegas. Another one, him doing some crazy push-ups. Again, lots of money on his back. He's kind of setting what he's like off the ice. He likes the money, he likes the attention, he likes the fame. We'll see how that works out for him. Later that year, though, however, 2012, Jets do sign him for a 6-year, $31.5 million contract. So at the time, I guess they don't see that to be enough red flags to not sign him to a long-term deal. Winnipeg being a small market team, he gets a lot of focus. It only makes sense. But also in 2012, same year that the NHL had its lockout, so the season didn't actually kick off. He went and played in Russia, played about 12 games before, again, another issue. Nothing crazy, nothing documented, just said it didn't work out, but he only played 12 games. After that, 2013, the following season, coach and him have some more problems dating back to that little bit of a benching. There's some more problems, and he is benched completely and misses the game. April 2014. This is the first time we see some assault allegations of a time when he was in Vancouver. Vancouver's his hometown, so he apparently knew this guy for a little bit of time, and he was benched alongside that. And when the coach was asked why he was benched, he probably needs to come to the rink. Starting to see some issues here. The assault allegations end up being nothing too much in Vancouver, and that there was a lot of concussion, etc., etc. Happened at 2 in the morning. Apparently the other guy attacked him. He was self-defense. Who knows at this point what that was all about. February 2015, this is where his tenure to the Jets really comes to an end. He is a healthy scratch yet again. And again, as a star player, you don't really see this in the NHL, healthy scratches, because you want your stars in the game. And that's what the fans come to see. Apparently there's an incident with his teammates. He showed up to a personnel meeting against dress code wearing a tracksuit. Guess the captain or some of the leadership at the time did not like it. Dustin Byfuglien allegedly threw his tracksuit into the showers to try to make a statement. When asked about it, I think Wheeler, he ended up being the captain now. I don't know if he was captain at the time, but he had this statement to say.
There's a standard that everyone needs to live up to. We're professionals. We make a lot of money, and we're expected to uphold a certain standard, and that's the code we live by. And that's just the way it is. If you don't like it, then there's other places to go. This is the way we do things.
And believe it or not, the animosity must have been high between Kane and the rest of his teammates, because 3 days later he opted for a season-ending shoulder surgery, which actually was the end of his tenure in Winnipeg, because a couple days after that he was traded to Buffalo. The speculation at the time was that he had this shoulder problem the whole season. Did he really need to address it then? Maybe not, but I guess with everything going on in the locker room, he opted for, and again, created a divisive unit in Winnipeg. He moved on to Buffalo after that, where things did not change. So he was traded at the trade deadline in 2015. Didn't play the rest of the season, of course, and it is almost a year of a little bit of quietness until he shows up again for kind of off-ice antics and kind of letting his team down. February 2016, he decided to go to Toronto. Again, Toronto's 2 hours or so drive from Buffalo. He's a Canadian citizen, pretty easy travel, hop, skip, and a jump, and he's there. They are hosting the NBA All-Star Game, so he goes there to partake in some festivities. And I guess it went a little too ham because he ended up staying up in a hotel and not getting back and missing team practice. They punished him by only suspending him for 1 game. It was an in-team policy thing, but it didn't end there because there were more assault allegations coming out of his time in Buffalo. Again, sexual assault when something to do with a hotel room and a lady coming up there to go to a party. There was time where he was a celebrity bar host and apparently did some more assaulting there. And on top of that, while his time in Buffalo, the Sabres finished either second last or last all 3 years in the division. So not really the kind of influence that they have been hoping to get from Evander Kane when he went there. His contract at this point is coming near an end. The 6 years is actually coming to an end, believe it or not. And Buffalo is pretty much out of the race, so they decide to trade him at the trade deadline. And the highest bidder at that time is the San Jose Sharks. At the time of the trade, I found an article. It was pretty funny. Some of the comments from 3 years ago. I don't know what is involved in the deal, but the Sharks ended up with Kane, so they lost regardless. So at this point, you can really see that the public opinion of Kane is already very low, and they kind of figure it out. Kane is arrogant, narcissist, beyond belief. He carries an attitude with him to the rink which only hurts the team he suits up for. He has some physical gifts, but low general hockey IQ offsets those talents. I wouldn't take him for $3 million, let alone 5.75, which is his average contract worth at that time. And the last comment, I just found some of these funny. Don't understand why any GM would want to bring this guy to their team and dressing room. His dressing room antics outweigh everything. So that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning. This is before he goes to the Sharks, and this is honestly, the Sharks is where everything just kind of... But, the public seems to figure it out. I don't think general managers seem to realize that the personnel that they bring into a team matters as much as it does. Mind you, he was traded February 2018, and he was fairly quiet up until some breaking news pretty much out of nowhere, it seemed at the time. November of 2019, the Cosmopolitan of the Las Vegas, a luxury hotel, They started a lawsuit. They were claiming he had received 8 casino markers worth $100,000 each, so they were looking for the money back. This is like a policy, I guess, they do for high rollers, kind of like loans, and Kane never paid it back. This was like the straw that broke the camel's back in a way. Like, this happens, and then he's quiet, and everyone kind of has this attitude about Kane that, yeah, he kind of is what he is at this point. And then in January 11th of 2021, he files for bankruptcy, citing that he has $26.8 million in debt. Kind of starts to explain some of the stories that we've already talked about. The cosmopolitan, maybe the kind of attitude he had that might have walked out on some checks back in the day. He's too rich, too cool for life, and that's kind of the story that's coming out. Again, those things aren't like hockey related. It just kind of goes to speak more of the attitude and who this guy is. But come the summer of 2021, July 31st, his estranged wife makes some interesting Instagram posts, and he's a series of them actually, and he specifically tags the Sharks, specifically tags Gary Bettman, who's the commissioner of the NHL, pretty much alleging that he's out partying in Europe right now. It's not helping with his child, but also most importantly that he has been betting on his own NHL hockey games, which of course we all know, Pete Rose, etc. Huge no-no. There was an investigation in that, and nothing ever came out of it, so they never really proved it. But just the fact that this comes out, again, puts that bad spotlight on Evander Kane. He made a statement himself saying he never did it, of course, and without the evidence, we got to assume he didn't, but just the gambling, the problems with relationships off the ice never just seems to be building and building and building. After that, about 3 weeks later, while all this other stuff with his estranged wife's going on, there is another allegation that he offered someone $2 to $3 million to terminate a pregnancy and never paid. So there's another lawsuit against him claiming $3 million for terminating a pregnancy. I don't even know what to say at this point. Again, this is going to discovery, and these things are all going to come out what's going on there. So after that, the NHL season starting, 2021 gets started. But before it even starts, he is suspended for 21 games because he submitted fake COVID vaccine card. So with the NHL, there's basically everyone got vaccinated. There are a lot of rules around those that didn't, but he submitted a fake one. They found out. He was suspended 21 games. And during this time, it was pretty clear that his Shark teammates were fed up with him. They didn't want him back. They held player only meetings that they don't want this guy back, and I think the Sharks were all on board with that because when his suspension was up, they waived him, which normally means other teams can bid for him, but due to his contract at the time, the Sharks, I forgot to mention, the Sharks signed this guy for $7 million a year, and he still had 3 more years left on his contract, so no one has the room to take that on, let alone want to take this guy on for that much of a contract. So he's waived. He ends up going to the farm team in the AHL, where allegedly he breaks COVID protocol again. And this is supposed to be able to put the Sharks in a position to terminate his contract, which they do. Of course, the NHLPA, the Players Association, is fighting for Kane's rights, and this is an ongoing situation. But as of right now, he is a free agent. And with this long history of problems, you would think that most teams would just scoff and not want to bring him in. But apparently, there are at least 3 teams in the hunt for that, but they are waiting. Allegedly, Kane is the one waiting to sign a contract with someone else while the NHL investigates this thing with the Sharks because he just wants all that dealt with before he signs with a team. But to me, it's just shocking that any team would consider to bring this guy in, especially in hockey. You're such a tight-knit group of guys, and you don't want to bring in a guy that's just gonna divide and he has a history of it, and he has all these distractions off the ice. So it's taking a big gamble for what potentially is a small return. Of course, he is a very good player. When he's on, he is on. He's one of the top power forwards in the NHL. But Yeah, I don't like. If you ask me, I think this guy deserves at least a little bit of a timeout before teams start to look, and give him some time to turn his life around. I understand with this whole declaring bankruptcy thing, he needs to find a way to get some money to sort his life out, and he only got a few years left as he is 29 years old. So we'll see what that's like. I'm interested to see what you guys think below. What team is interested? There's rumors it's Edmonton. Possibly Florida, Dallas, who knows? I think Vegas possibly fit. At this point, if you're getting a top winger for what is probably going to be a minimum salary contract, could go anywhere that really happens. So there's a couple teams interested. McDavid's been interviewed about it, and he kind of was like, whatever. Like, if he comes, he comes. It's up to the GM. So he took a lot of hate for that. But I'm interested. I'm surprised, but I'm also interested. He has quite the history. Will this be the last bad story we hear from Evander Kane? For his sake, I really hope so. I hope he really finds what he needs to find, and hopefully he's learned his lesson. But history kind of shows that he hasn't, and I am still in awe that GMs want to bring this kind of person into their environment because, as we all know, toxic, cancerous type attitude is contagious. It can spread. It can destroy, and that's what the team that's going to sign him is risking. So again, let me know what you guys think. Smash that like button, subscribe. We'll see you guys out there for that next video.